And now or after this live, I greatly appreciate it. Please make sure to hit that like button, as it will greatly help push this content. Just for purposes of time stamping this very quickly, let's do that. Good mid-afternoon, 2:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Wednesday, November 1st already, 2023. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. So we're going to watch Jerome Powell. I won't say anything, just know that the Fed held rates. We'll talk about this as we go along. ATK, welcome in, and if you have any questions, please let me know. So this just started about 20 minutes ago. I just got back home from my son's physical therapy and whatnot, so I wanted to do this right now. So Louvel, welcome in. I was just trying to give everybody a chance to gather in, but let me get into when Jerome actually comes out.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. We understand the hardship that high inflation is causing, and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. Since early last year, the FOMC has significantly tightened the stance of monetary policy. We have raised our policy interest rate by 5.25 percentage points and have continued to reduce our securities holdings at a brisk pace. The stance of policy is restrictive, meaning that tight policy is putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation, and the full effects of our tightening have yet to be felt. Today, we decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Given how far we have come, along with the uncertainties and risks we face, the committee is proceeding carefully. We will make decisions about the extent of additional policy firming and how long policy will remain restrictive based on the totality of the incoming data, the evolving outlook.
Once again, when does the data actually come in? I'm sorry for interrupting, but when does this data ever come in? There's 25 people here. When does the data come in? Please make sure to hit that like button, and I won't interrupt.
Balance of risks. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a strong pace and well above earlier expectations. In the third quarter, real GDP is estimated to have risen an outsized annual rate of 4.9%, boosted by a surge in consumer spending. After picking up somewhat over the summer, activity in the housing sector has flattened out and remains well below levels of a year ago, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Higher interest rates also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. The labor market remains tight, but supply and demand conditions continue to come into better balance. Over the past 3 months, payroll job gains averaged 266,000 jobs per month, a strong pace that is nevertheless below that seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate remains low at 3.8%. Strong job creation has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers. The labor force participation rate has moved up since late last year, particularly for individuals aged 25 to 54 years, and immigration has rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. Nominal wage growth has shown some signs of easing, and job vacancies have declined so far this year. Although the jobs to workers gap has narrowed, labor demand still exceeds the supply of available workers. Inflation remains well above our longer run goal of 2%. Total PCE prices rose 3.4% over the 12 months ending in September. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose.
Again, let's just get rid of the two most important categories. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much. I just wanted to acknowledge everybody who's commenting, but I don't want to speak over Jerome. So I want to thank everybody. If you're just tuning in, the Fed did not raise rates once again, so they're seriously ushering hyperinflation. It's going to be a catastrophe here going forward. They still have one more chance to raise rates at the end of the year in December, but we'll see what happens.
3.7%. Inflation has moderated since the middle of last year, and readings over the summer were quite favorable.
Thank you for commenting. Angela, welcome in, love. Adobe, OMC, ATK, from Edie, CJ2 Pilot, XRP Stu, ATK Tom, thank you so much for all the work you put. Hey, no problem, ATK. Gerald, we will crash the middle class. Jerome Powell, absolutely, 100% on the nuts.
But
well,
a few months of good data are only the beginning of what it will take to build confidence that inflation is moving down sustainably toward our goal. The process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go. Despite elevated inflation, longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. As I noted earlier,
sorry, they're doing the leaf collectors, guys. I'm gonna let it just get by my drive. That's perfect, because I just put the leaves out there this morning.
Raised our policy rate by 5.25 percentage points, and we have decreased our securities holdings by more than $1 trillion. Our restrictive stance of monetary policy is putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation. The committee decided at today's meeting to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5%, and to continue the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings.
Miss Vicky, welcome in, love. Yeah, ATK, this is for the people that live in the United States. Yes, it is. Yes, thank you for clarifying. Yep, this is our rate hike decision. I apologize if they pick up the leaves. I can put them in our road right by the house, which is nice. And I literally just did it before I took my son to therapy. And now I come back and they're collecting them, so how perfect is that?
We are committed to achieving a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation sustainably down to 2% over time, and to keeping policy restrictive.
No, Miss Vicky, stayed the same,
confident that inflation is on a path to that objective. We are attentive to recent data showing the resilience of economic growth and demand for labor, evidence of growth persistently above potential, or that tightness in the labor market is no longer easing, could put further progress on inflation at risk and could warrant further tightening of monetary policy. Financial conditions have tightened significantly in recent months, driven by higher, longer-term bond yields, among other factors. Because persistent changes...
Oh, John, I agree with you, but I've got about 5 big trees on my property right here, just in my front yard and side yard, and it piles up on my driveway. I don't take the stuff off my grass or in my backyard. I actually use it in my garden and stuff, but the stuff that's on my driveway, I have to blow it into the road. Driveway, sidewalk, anywhere my 4-year-old will walk across. I don't want my kids tripping. So that stuff goes. Everything else, though, I agree with you. I keep it in the on the grass, in my flower beds, everywhere that I have my garden, and then I just let it roam around in the backyard. I always blow it into the backyard. Only the stuff in the front yard that has to go by the road, because I got a tree right by the road. So that doesn't do me any good. Yeah, I don't like to waste it, though. It actually pains me to see that fucking truck coming by every day. Excuse me. To see that truck taken out away, to be honest with you, because I know there's stuff living in it.
The financial conditions can have implications for the path of monetary policy. We monitor financial developments closely. In light of the uncertainties and risks and how far we have come, the committee is proceeding carefully. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting based on the totality of the incoming data and their implications for the outlook and for economic activity and inflation, as well as the balance of risks. In determining the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time, the committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation, and economic and financial developments. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Reducing inflation is likely to require a period of below potential growth and some softening of labor market conditions. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect
This is what you're giving us?
families,
To
and
conclude?
businesses across the country.
He better not have just said to conclude and he's already going to be taking questions. That's it? He can't even get through 15 minutes anymore? Like, he's supposed to do a good 20 to 30 minutes of straight talk before he takes... Like, this is becoming absurd. 10 minutes? And I cut in for 4 of them. This is fucking... Oh. And you know what they just asked for? The Fed said they need $1 trillion. We already know this. This is no secret. Yesterday, this was big news, as I talked about. So, I mean, this is... All they're doing is ushering in hyperinflation. And what I don't understand for the life of me, they always talk in the sense of, we can afford to pay back the interest. Who cares about the interest? What about the principal that's accruing? And while they're trying to pay back the interest, the principal is getting bigger and bigger, and the interest rates are getting bigger and bigger and going higher and higher. I mean, what the hell is going on? Here we go.
Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Crypto Scrooge,
Howard Schneider with Reuters. Thank you, Chair Powell, for doing this. To what you referenced the rise in long-term bond
Thanks for
yields,
doing
to
your
what
job,
degree
yeah.
did that supplant action by the Fed at this meeting?
Thanks for your question. So, I'll talk about bond yields, but I want to take a second and just sort of set the broader context in which we're looking at that. So, if you look at the situation, let's look at the economy first. Inflation has been coming down, but it's still running well above our 2% target. The labor market has been rebalancing, but it's still very tight by many measures. GDP growth has been strong, although many forecasters are forecasting, and they have been forecasting, that it will slow. As for the committee, we are committed to achieving a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time. And we're not confident yet that we have achieved such a stance. So that is the broader context into which the strong economy and all the things I said, that's the context in which we're looking at this question of rates. So obviously we're monitoring, we're attentive to the increase in longer term yields, and which have contributed to a tightening of broader financial conditions since the summer.
How do you welcome in?
As I mentioned, persistent changes in broader financial conditions can have implications for the path of monetary policy. In this case, the tighter financial conditions we're seeing from higher long-term rates, but also from other sources like the stronger dollar and lower equity prices could matter for future rate decisions as long as two conditions are satisfied. The first is that the tighter conditions would need to be persistent, and that is something that remains to be seen. But that's critical. Things are fluctuating back and forth. That's not what we're looking for. With financial conditions, we're looking for persistent changes that are material. Second thing is that the longer term rates that have moved up, they can't simply be a reflection of expected policy moves from us. That we would then, that if we didn't follow through on them, then the rates would come back down. So, and I would say on that, it does not appear that an expectation of higher near-term policy rates is causing the increase in longer-term rates. So, in the meantime, though, perhaps the most important thing is that these higher Treasury yields are showing through to higher borrowing costs for households and businesses, and those higher costs are going to weigh on economic activity to the extent this tightening persists. And the mind's eye goes to the 8%, near 8% mortgage rate, which could have pretty significant effect on housing. So that's how I would answer your question.
Just as a quick follow-on to be clear on this, in your opening statement and just now, you seem to imply that you are not yet confident that financial conditions are restrictive enough to finish the fight. Is that true?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Big moves about to happen in metals.
To say it a different way, we haven't made any
I don't know if it's going to be this week, but there's a big move coming in metals.
We have not made a determination.
Oh boy!
And we're not. I will say that we're not confident at this time that we've reached such a stance.
I mean, a massive
we're not confident
one.
That we haven't. We're not.
Might be setting
that
up for 24.
And that is the way we're going to be going into these future meetings is to be, just determining the extent of any additional further policy tightening that may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time.
I mean, if these start... Huge
Hi, Chair
one.
Powell. Thank you so much for taking
Huge
our
one,
questions.
ATK.
I wonder,
Massive.
if you don't raise interest rates in December, would the
Absolutely
presumption
massive.
be that at that point that we should expect that rates are at their peak, or is there a possibility of restarting rate increases next year? And are there any costs to taking a more extended pause?
So let me start by saying we haven't made a decision about September. You're asking a hypothetical there, but we're going into the December meeting. We'll get, as you know, 2 more inflation readings, 2 more labor market readings, some data on economic activity, and so we'll be taking, and also the broader situation, the broader financial condition situation, and the broader world situation. We'll be looking at all those things as we make a decision in December. We haven't made that decision. I would say, though, that the idea that the idea that you would be difficult to raise again after stopping for a meeting or two is just not right. I mean, a committee will always do what it thinks is appropriate at the time. And again, we haven't made any decisions at all about December. We didn't talk about making a decision in December today. Really, it was a decision for this meeting and understanding broader things.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, did the Fed staff put a recession back into the baseline forecast in the materials for today's meeting? And how much does this tightening in financial conditions substitute for rate hikes if the tightening is persistent? You had said it was worth maybe a quarter point when we had the bank failures in the spring. What is it here on something that's presumably more straightforward and more familiar to simulate?
So I guess I don't want to answer your question about the recession, but the answer is no. I think I have to answer it since we did publicly say in the minutes. You'll know anyway in the minutes. The staff did not put our recession back in. I mean, it would be hard to see how you would do that if you look at the activity we've seen recently, which is not.
Ready, I'll give you the easiest way to break this down for everybody, and I won't interrupt this much, but I see all the questions. 3 main goals right now of the Federal Reserve. 1, usher in hyperinflation, correct. 2, they've got to do something to get us out of the US dollar. So what are they going to do? They're going to put it out of its existence by printing into oblivion, and right when the time comes with the BRICS, they're going to try to flip over to some digital system, and they're going to say, see, we can't use the dollar, so let's just rid the dollar and let's go into some digital nonsense that's going to really make things screwy. 3, if you don't have precious metals now and you haven't been listening to me since 21, I suggest you start paying attention. Once Basel 4 and 5 is implemented, it's just a done deal. Like it's just a done deal. We're working on Basel. I'm telling you, I'm just going to hit play. Get your metals, understand when you're in your native currencies, especially in the USA where there is no fee to buy silver like there is in like the UK and some other places, I believe, that I've been told. Like, we don't have the fee. Take advantage of it. Come 24, only God himself knows what this government is capable of going into 24 when it comes to pricing of metals. Do you think if metals ever gets to 5 or 10,000, there's not going to be a huge tax to buy it along the way? I mean, a huge tax. They may call it the metals tax. There was a time when a sports gambler didn't get taxed by the government. Now there's a tax. They're going to, just saying, take advantage of it while you can.
Indicative of a recession in the near term.
Thanks,
in terms of
Crypto
how to think about translation into rate hikes, I think it's just too early to be doing that. And the main reason is we just don't know how persistent this will be. You can see how volatile it is. Different kinds of news will affect the level of rates. And I think any kind of an estimate that was, precise would hang out there and have a great chance of looking wrong very quickly. So I think what we can say is that financial conditions have clearly tightened, and you can see that in the rates that consumers and households and businesses are paying now. And over time, that will have an effect. We just don't know how persistent it's going to be, and it's tough to try to translate that in a way that I'd be comfortable communicating into how many rate hikes that is.
Dude, he just told you He doesn't even feel comfortable telling how many more rate hikes there's going to be. Just listen to what he's actually saying. He just said, I don't feel comfortable telling you how many rate hikes that's going to be. He knows. This is going to be Paul Volcker all over again, except worse. This is so much worse. Even in the Great Depression, do you know how much worse this is and the reason why? What's the one difference between now and the Great Depressions of the 20s and 30s? The 1920s and 30s for anybody who doesn't know. The difference is we were actually a what? Exporter. We were an exporting nation. We exported goods. We actually made shit that people wanted. Now what are we now? We're an importer. We don't export any. I mean, oh man, it makes it. It's the fact that my peers around me don't see this. Everybody, like, when I was a kid, I was told I was too young. Now I'm 39, about to be 40 next month. Like, and I'm still told, oh, you haven't seen it all. I don't need to see it all. I could see it when I was 12. So should you have. That's an indictment on you, not me being ahead of my time. Everybody, oh, you're ahead of your time. No, I'm not ahead of my time because my time is dumb as your time. I just happen to have, I don't know why, but God gave me the ability to actually see things for what they are at a very young age, and I am blessed with that.
What makes you confident that tighter financial conditions will slow above trend growth when 500 basis points of rate hikes, QT, and a minor banking crisis have not thus far?
Well, that's the way our policy works is, and sometimes it works with lags, of course, which can be long and variable. But ultimately, if you raise raise interest rates, you do see those effects, and you see those effects in the economy now. You see what's happening in the housing market. You're seeing that now. You'll see if you look at surveys of people, it's not a good time, they think, to buy durable goods of various kinds because rates are so high now. I mentioned again, we're getting reports from housing that the effects of this could be
Always ready for you, Miss Mickey. Always ready.
quite significant. But you're right. This has been a resilient economy, and it's, I think, been surprising in its resilience. And there are a number of possible reasons why that may be. Our job is to achieve maximum employment and price stability, and so we take the economy as it comes. It has been resilient, so we take it as it is.
Colby.
This is so nice, never saying a damn thing.
Thank you. Colby Smith with the Financial Times. In terms of the thresholds that you've laid out of what could warrant further tightening, the additional evidence of persistently above trend growth or some kind of reversal in the recent easing of labor market tightness, that seems to suggest something more powerful than just one more quarter point rate hike would be necessary. And I'm just curious if that's how the committee sees it.
So we've identified those factors. Those are not meant to be the only factors or a specific test that we're going to be applying with some metrics behind it. Really, we're going to be looking at the broader picture and what's happening with our progress toward the 2% inflation goal. Is the labor market continuing to broadly cool off and achieve a better balance?
Non-existent, honestly.
That.
Non-existent.
Growth. We look at growth insofar as it has implications
weak
for our two mandate goals. We look at that. And we look at broader financial conditions.
Very,
so we're
very
looking
weak,
at all of those
honestly.
things as we reach a judgment, whether we need to further tighten policy. And if we do reach that judgment, then we will further tighten policy.
Right. And just in terms of the tightening of financial conditions, if that is having some kind of offsetting effect in terms of...
Yes, Miss Vicky, that is an excellent question. Is it possible due to liquidity crisis, all this horrible macro issues, there won't be a bull run? Well, Miss Vicky, and we're going to go back to the chart, or go back to that very quickly. Just all as everybody needs to know to answer that question, and this is perfect question for everybody who's here. In my all-time chart, what's the timeline on certain sectors here? What's the longest this could run to? And if we had a full-on liquidity crisis, you very well could find it taken to 25, 26, 28. And it doesn't mean it comes down here, but you could find yourself, like I always say, my key end game is 28. We could have a mini bull run, like a bear market bull run, whatever you want to call it. We could have that in 24, and that would be the proper conditions of, well, we're flipping into a new system now because now the Saudis have officially said, starting January 1st, and they're the ones who join the BRICS, they agreed that they wouldn't come out of the government bonds and start paying petrol with anything other than US dollar until January 1st. But starting then, they can use gold. They can pay for it in gold, and the Saudis said that they would just convert their native currency into the, or buy the ounces that it would cost and yada, and transfer it. So for that reason, I still leave it open that crypto could very well have a unexpected mini bull run in 24. I'm actually anticipating that. Honestly, because at some point the liquidity that's going to pour in, because people are going to have to flood out of the US dollar, flood out of other native currencies. Not everybody's going to buy gold and silver. So some people are just going to buy, oh, look, XRP, I can go to Japan, I can go to, you know, Siberia, I can go to Antarctica. It doesn't matter. I can just sell it and it'll be automatically in my native currency or my native digital, whatever the hell I need to use. But what I'm waiting for digital currencies, and this is the truth, for the ones that are going to be here with the ISO and the Internet of Things and such, I'm looking for it to be something that's going to be used as a medium of exchange. So I'm looking at XRP, I'm looking at XLM and XDC and Algo and the Caspers and, you know, some of the big ones of the world. I'm looking at them to actually start transcending things, you know, to where we can actually, all right, well, maybe we can't use our V chain theoretically, but it's used for the Internet of Things. So it's the smart houses, the smart utilities, the smart, whatever we're going into the next chapter, when we get plugged in, just know VeChain will be there for you. It might not be that, like I said, we might be siding with the wrong side here, but what you need to do when all this stuff comes together, you better be invested in it, just like with the whole technological explosion. Just like with the internet and all the stuff related to it, just like with IBM and everything that was related to anybody who understood gaming at a finite level early on, that understood what NVIDIA was, and these different chip makers. Like that, you know, I'm just saying, if you understand that that's what we're coming to a digital world now. So understanding how different tokens control different parts of this economy now when we go forward, or control different parts of the technology, I believe we're going to be able to use what we do in crypto as a medium of exchange. And if you can't use your native currency, I believe you'll be able to sell it into XRP or something very similar to it that we already own. But I believe XRP has the biggest shot because of the 100 billion circulating supply. It doesn't make any other sense any other way. Yes, Quant runs the whole show. Like I've said, I always say this, Quant runs the whole thing. Without Quant, you can't do any of it. I know that was a long answer, Miss Vicky, and I promise I won't interrupt again. But I hope that helps with why I do and invest the way I do. And then the gold and silver, that's your store of value. That's your, okay, I have $50,000 in the savings. No. You got $50,000 in gold and silver. That's money. You're not keeping it in US dollar. If you have US dollars, that's where you buy crypto if you don't know what to do with your leftover dollars and you don't want to buy metals. But you better buy a 50-50 split at least. I'm just saying, like, if you've got 10,000 in crypto, you should be able to afford 10,000 in gold and silver. If you can't, maybe do 7,500 in crypto and just give yourself a 25%, at least for me.
The need to potentially, again, raise rates. What then is the potential impact on the trajectory of rate cuts? Could we see those maybe pulled forward or have to see more than what the September SEP indicated?
So it's the fact is the committee is not thinking about rate cuts right now at all. We're not talking about rate cuts. We're still very focused on the first question, which is, have we achieved a stance of monetary policy that's sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to 2% over time, sustainably? That is the question we're focusing on. The next question, as you know, will be, for how long will we remain restrictive? Will policy remain restrictive? And what we said there is that we'll keep policy restrictive until we're confident that inflation is on a sustainable path down to 2%. That'll be the next question. But honestly, right now, we're really tightly focused on the first question. The question of rates cuts just doesn't come up because I think the first, it's so important to get that first question, you know, as close to right as you can.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Mr. Chairman, I guess I had assumed that there was a tightening bias in the committee. You say in the statement you're looking to assess the appropriate stance of monetary policy, the extent to which you may need to hike additionally. You didn't say earlier that you were sufficiently restrictive. There were forecasts for 2 rate hikes among most members of the committee. But then you just said that, you know, we haven't made a determination. Would you say the bias right now is neutral, that there is no disposition to hike again, and that the committee largely has moved off of this forecast for 2 hikes? Or for one additional
I
hike
think
this
you're
year?
talking about one additional.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that at all. I would say, I mean, the language, looking at it here, in determining the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate to return inflation 2% over time, that's the question we're asking.
So is it right to think of that as a hiking bias is still in the committee here?
We haven't used that term, but it's fair to say that's the question we're asking: is should we hike more? It's not, and that is the question. And you're right that in September we wrote down one additional rate hike, but we'll write down another forecast, as you know, in December.
Chris.
Thank you, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Well, since the last meeting, the auto workers' strike has finished. Oil prices have leveled off. And yet, on the other hand, you have the outbreak of war between Israel and Hamas. How do you see all those factors taken together affecting the economy going forward? How are you thinking about those?
Trying to listen to this guy, I've been walking in circles because he's so hard to listen to. He lies about
geopolitical
everything.
Tensions are certainly elevated, and that goes for the war in Ukraine. It goes for the war between Israel and Hamas. We're monitoring that. Our job is to monitor those things for their economic implications. So the UAW strike, as you point out, is appears to be coming to an end. Oil prices have flattened out. They haven't gone down, but I guess they've gone down a little bit from their earlier peak.
It's coming to an end.
Another one is the possibility of government shutdown. We don't know about that one. So there's plenty of risk out there. But I would go back to the bigger picture from our standpoint is we've got a very strong economy, strong labor market, making progress on the labor market, making progress on inflation, and we're very focused on getting confident that we have achieved a stance of monetary policy
Didn't even say
that
confident.
is sufficiently restrictive. That's really our focus.
Great. And just one quick thing. You last month had gone to York, Pennsylvania, where you talked to last month, where you talked to a lot of small business owners. Just curious, what sentiments did you hear from them, or what did you picked up on, and was there anything that surprised you the most in terms of what they talked about?
I wouldn't say I was terribly surprised. I was very impressed by York as a town with a real strategy, and I would say it's very impressive what the people there have put together in the face of some difficult longer run trends about offshoring of manufacturing and that kind of thing. They've done a great job as a city, I think. What you hear, and it is consistent there, which is people are really suffering under high inflation. You were there. We talked to some people who, were feeling that in their businesses, and other people who were feeling it in their home lives as well. It's painful for people, particularly people who don't have a lot of extra financial resources, who are spending most of their income on the essentials of life. So we know that wasn't new, but that did come through very clearly in the conversations we had in New York. And I walked away from that even, just thinking that we really the best thing we can do for the U.S. is to restore price stability, fully restore price stability, and not fail in that task, and do it as.
We already know he's lying. You know how? Because he keeps expanding the money supply. What's the one way to have better price stability? Hello? You have to contract the money supply so the pricing comes back down. You can't expand it and expect price to... Now it's just going to keep going out of control. You want one more trillion, Powell? Well, here we go. We keep expanding the money supply, so now it's going to be even more expensive for who? Us. Us. The ones you're trying to say that you care about. So eat shit and stop lying to us.
Quickly as possible, but also with the least damage we can.
Rachel.
Hi, Chair Powell. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. You've spoken before about the pain that would likely be coming for the economy in order to get inflation down. But since the economy has not responded to rate hikes in ways that would normally be expected, have you changed your views on that at all, on how necessary or inevitable?
Do you see how big this note thing is to read off of? Like, he literally had to turn it around. Like, how do you have... This is the thing. How do you have printed out answers to the questions you have not heard yet? Like, what could you possibly be reading off this piece of paper unless it's scripted? I mean, come on now. Holy crap. Tom M., thank you so much for the $25 donation. Hope everyone is having a great day. We're having a spectacular day. Spectacular day. But after this guy gets done talking, I have to go. My mom's here. But I want to see this through. But I also want to talk to my mom. So I'm going to see this through here.
That kind of pain would be, say, for the labor market or overall growth?
Well, I think everyone has been very gratified to see that we've been able to achieve, pretty significant progress on inflation without seeing the kind of increase in unemployment that has been very typical of rate hiking cycles like this one. So that's a historically unusual and very welcome result. And the same is true of growth. We've been saying that we need to see below potential growth, and growth has been strong, but yet we're still seeing this. I still believe, and my colleagues, for the most part, I think still believe that it is likely to be true. It is still likely to be true, not a certainty, but likely that we will need to see some slower growth and some softening in the labor market conditions to get to fully restore price stability. So, but it's only a good thing that we haven't seen it, and I think we know why. Since we lifted off, we have understood that there are really two processes at work here. One of which is the unwinding of
Jerome.
Distortions to both supply and demand from the pandemic and the response to the pandemic, and the other is restrictive monetary policy, which is moderating demand and giving the supply side time to recover, time and space to recover. So you see those two forces now working together to bring down inflation. But it's that first one.
Everybody always thinks this is bad for crypto when he talks. Like I keep saying, he keeps talking like this. He's going to usher in a mini bull run in 24 because the people are going to have to put their money somewhere. When the U.S. dollar comes out, not everybody in the new age, especially the kids under 25, they're not looking to buy precious, under 30, I should say. Hell, even nobody is. In the USA, probably what is the statistic? Less than 8% of the population owns one kind of metal or another. That's insane. 92% of people are just walking around with paper currency, no money. So XRP, he keeps talking us up right now. That's what you want to hear. We just need volume. Right now we have no volume. That's it. Yes, we have two beautiful, what look like, could be inverted hammer candles here in the longer time, as we've talked about, in the weekly. But in the smaller time frames, we just continue moving on. We continue pressing on. For hourly, they're squeezing right now, but it's to be expected with Jerome Powell speaking. Now it looks like an inverted hammer is forming. So if that's the case, we're going to break up to that 63-cent mark and have a date with destiny here.
Can bring down inflation without the need for...
All right, guys, I'm sorry. Once he gets done answering this question, I got to go. I want to go talk to my mom. And honestly, I appreciate each and every one of you. We can talk about what he ends with, but I guarantee he's not going to say shit here that we don't know, and I'm not sitting through 20 more minutes when my mom's here. So I'm going to let him finish this question, but I'm sure you can all understand. Have a blessed afternoon, and I'll see you tonight on the next update.
Can bring down inflation without the need for higher unemployment or slower growth. It's supply side improvements like shortages and bottlenecks and that kind of thing going away. It's getting a significant increase in the size of the labor market now, both from labor force participation and from immigration.
Tanya, welcome in, love. And yes, I've heard that too.
Gain.
It's a good way
that
to
is really helping the economy. And it's part of why GDP is so high, is because we're getting that supply. So Bullshit. He's lying to you. The only supply he's getting is what's being exported to us. So have a good day, everybody. And under parental supervision, I advise you to only watch